All right, so same things as usual here. Our membership has been fairly steady for the last couple of months. No additions, no losses. If any of you are not already following us on social media, we have a number of sites with our website, Twitter account, Facebook site, and YouTube channel, as well as our Slack team room that you can find out what we're doing and share information with others. So welcome all tonight. First of all, do we have any visitors in the audience? All right, I was hoping we might have one or two, but seems like we do not.
Can I ask a question? Can I ask a question, John?
Yes.
Can you go back a page? And you see where it says number 2 social media, number 4 YouTube channel?
Yes.
That's a strange channel name.
I will have to look at it.
Well, no, yeah, if it'd be nice if that said CapMac.
Okay.
It should be the group CapMac Austin.
Okay, I will fix that. It does get to the right spot. I just checked it, but thank you, Bill. I will make a note to fix it with the right name.
Yeah, because if I were going to look for it, I'd hate to have to remember.
Oh, no.
Whatever that is. So,
that's the reason it's a live link that you can click on.
Gotcha. All right.
But I will update that. Thanks for pointing that out. Okay, so we have 3 pieces of program tonight. First, Nathan Lott's going to do a product review. Second, Robert is going to tell us how we can find a vaccine location on Apple Maps. And then finally, Nancy's going to talk to us about the M1 processor that Apple is beginning to use with their new Macs. So our board, pretty much the same. Same old faces. One of these days we'll be able to get in touch and actually get a new photo made, but it's not going to be tonight. We do have appointed positions. I'm still looking for a few. If you're interested, let me know. We had a good meeting in March via Zoom. We had Mac Stuff by Brian Chaffin from Mac Observer. And we have all of our CapMac meetings, as we just discussed, on our YouTube channel, at least those that were produced in the last year. So if you are interested in looking back at something or want to refer someone to our meetings so they can look and see what they're like, they can go there and check us out. We are always looking for contributions like are being made by Robert and Nathan tonight. So if you have something you want to talk about, a tech tip, a product review, security tip, whatever, let us know so we can work you into the program. Likewise, if there's a particular topic or speaker you would like to have cover, let us know. We'll route that to Nancy, who's doing our program arrangements now, and we can find someone to speak on the topic you're interested in, or perhaps reach out to the speaker you're recommending and they'll be willing to join us and do a program. Our help desk is still operational, even though we're not physically together. If you send an email to me, I will get it to our help desk team, or you can post a question in Slack. Either way, I'll get it to the help desk and post the answers appropriately. We've been doing that on and off now for the last several weeks, and there have been some questions asked, and our desk team has been able to produce some answers. That leads me up to a question. We've been meeting via Zoom now for a year. The question has come up amongst the board, when should we start to think about having a face-to-face meeting? So let me kind of take a couple of minutes here and ask you all what you think. And I'm going to quit sharing the screen so I can look at people while they talk. So what do you think we ought to do? Wait until fall? Wait until December? Wait until 2022? how long should we wait before scheduling our first face-to-face meeting?
Don't we often have a picnic? It seems like an outdoors gathering might be a good place to start because we could stay a little further away. And also, we don't know which businesses still have rooms we could rent.
Absolutely good questions.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. The picnic, if we had the picnic later in August, give everybody time to get their shots and
Yeah.
we could just relax and see each other. And I have already started on the next trivia contest.
You're planning ahead. Well,
Mhm.
and I think fall would be a good time to do it, not August, because it's still too hot.
It's
But
just too hot.
especially if we're going to do it outside. But
No,
September or
we're-
October, I think would be good times to do it. Any other thoughts?
I think that requiring, vaccinations as a prerequisite to meeting would not be an unreasonable thing to ask.
I think we need to talk about that. I'm not sure. I think we should require it. Nobody's going to require it. I mean, but that's a board question. You guys can overrule me.
If you don't want to get a vaccine, don't come to the picnic.
Oh,
Well, the difficulty, I mean, that's the problem is that if people are not vaccinated, people that are vaccinated can be passive carriers. In other words, they may have a mild case. In other words, being vaccinated doesn't inhibit you from getting sick. You're not going to die. You can still get sick. I mean, there are cases. And so the unfortunate thing would be if somebody was a passive carrier or an asymptomatic
Yeah, we could
carrier
still
and then
get
got
it.
exposed to somebody that wasn't vaccinated, it could very well do them in. And so that's where the danger arises.
very true.
Being vaccinated is probably, that's a pretty minimal thing. I mean, seeing as how it doesn't cost anything and you just have to get scheduled and get your shot and you're good. So
I think the
say again?
segment of the segment of the population that can't get vaccinated for medical reasons is a very small
Yes.
part of
Well,
the population. I mean,
we-
yeah, there are some people, but it's very rare.
It is certainly recommended, but
Yeah. Yeah.
If people that are not vaccinated or not wearing masks are in attendance, then Terry and I won't be there.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Those
Another option is hybrid meetings, doing
well,
both.
we're
Yeah.
going to do
Right.
that. The board has already talked about that in that the Zoom meetings have been so successful. We've been able to get members in attendance that have not been able to attend in some time. So we want to continue doing Zoom meetings, but that doesn't prohibit us from also having a face-to-face meeting and simply broadcasting or streaming it via Zoom and recording it for later watching. So that was our intent. We have too many people, I think, that we've discovered can only come to our meetings if we do it via Zoom.
Is there a way to take a poll as to how many people have been vaccinated already?
I mean,
Maybe that could pass along one individually, yes or no, if they have, without sharing it with the whole group.
well, I don't care.
Okay.
I've had mine.
I've had mine.
The host
I'm
can-
not my 2 weeks out yet, but I've had them.
The host can
would be by
generate a
September.
poll. The host can generate a poll if he set up polling in his settings.
Robert?
Yeah, I'm working on it.
He's going to check. Well, it's certainly not something we're planning for next month. So we have
Yes,
some
it's true. We
time.
have time.
My intent here was to get some feedback from you guys to see, is fall too soon? Do we need to wait to next year? What the feeling is. So I think we kind of have a mixed feeling there. I think we
Oh.
can touch it on this again in July or August to see how ready everyone is to have a meeting and go from there. But it sounds
John?
like planning for fall is a good idea.
John, I mean, I think, I want to think the fall's going to be fine. I don't know what the variants are going to do. So I think it is wise to give it some time. By summer, we probably should know. Getting together outdoors so we get a chance to just see each other in person. Maybe we don't want to do every meeting that way, but I
No.
think periodically that is kind of what's important to keep the sense of the community going.
Yes.
So.
I agree that we
Yeah.
need a face-to-face meeting whenever we
yes,
can
yes.
have one. We'll have to look at this because
Yeah.
I think the board's going to have to find a place outside that can accommodate us and our needs, as well as we have to have a way of streaming the meeting. So we'll have to see what we can do. If nothing else, you set up a hotspot to stream it, but we'll look into that. There's been some good things. Good things there. So Robert just threw up a poll.
I don't know if I did it very well, but
Yes, but
be my guest.
You did it, and I
You did it well.
I volunteer to arrange Pokey Joe's catering.
Well, let's not, I think that would be the way to do it. Absolutely. But I think we're getting ahead of things at this point since we're looking at September, October. I think we need to find us a location that we can sit up outside, perhaps a park that has a pavilion that we can either rent or reserve. So we're sure to be out of the sun and set something up. We can start looking into that.
October is usually cooler than September.
Yes, it is.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I messed up the last question. I should have been, are you not planning on getting a shot? Sorry.
Well, the question stands.
Well, I think we're starting to get some information now that the board can take and work with to start planning something in the fall. And as we develop this, we can run it by you all at the meetings and we can see how it progresses. All right. Well, thank you. Are there any last minute contributions to that, or
Well,
can we?
I would think that the other thing too is we can just observe what's happening all over the place. Everybody, every organization is basically faced with the same problem, and I think this will we'll see how everybody else deals with the issue too as time goes by, and we'll kind of be able to form an opinion just based on what we see. So, and the other thing too is this, it opens up, if it turns out, if there's a big group get together and they have trouble, like it's highlighted as like, oh, this is a great event, except everybody got a free case. Well, that, so.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, good things to consider.
It's a really poor door prize.
All right. Well, thanks for that input from all of you. Let me go back to my screen then. There we go. All right. Well, we will keep you updated as things develop and the board works on this and we find out where we can have a meeting. As always, I've hyped the London Mac User Group's podcast if you're interested.
Oh. So,
Nancy, I know we've talked about this at the last meeting. Do you want to touch just a moment on the HomeKit workshop? Nancy, are you muted?
Somebody's muted. Mm-hmm.
Okay, sorry. We have 6 people signed up to actually participate in the workshop, and each of the 6 has a different kind of project that they want to undertake. For instance, somebody wants to be able to automate opening and closing their garage door, and somebody else wants a door, the door kit thing. Somebody else wants to be able to do the lights. So that covering all of those will certainly use up our time. I have sent to Jeff, our speaker, a list of the people and what projects they want. And I'm waiting for him to return to me a list of what he recommends that the participants purchase for their own projects, so that when we're talking about things, people can ask good questions. Now, we've been asked if other people can sit in on it. It's going to be virtual, of course. I have no problems with other people sitting in on it, as long as they don't try to ask questions or participate. If they'll mute and just watch, I don't see any problem with that at all. So I'm just waiting to hear back from Jeff, and as soon as I do, we'll move from there.
Well, thanks for that update, Nancy.
Nancy, when's the projected date for that?
Don't have one yet.
Okay.
I'm waiting for Jeff to decide. The sooner the better, but it's up to him. He's in Colorado, but that's not going to be a problem.
Okay. Well, thanks for the update, Nancy. And we'll all be looking forward to that. And as Nancy mentioned, once we get the information as to date, it'll be distributed to everyone if they're interested in sitting in and listening on what Jeff has to say. So that brings us up to our program. Let me call upon Nathan first, and I'm going to unshare my screen so he can grab it, or Robert can share it with him so he can grab it. So Nathan can talk about an app that he wanted to review.
You can go ahead. You're fine.
Okay, so for the last 10 weeks, I started a new podcast called Nathan Lott's Apple Thoughts, where I'm talking about Mac and iOS apps. It comes out every Sunday. It's at nlat.me. And on every podcast, I have an app of the week. So I decided to make those apps of the week into a video on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Nathan Lott. So I've done about 4 or 5 of them so far. I wanted to talk about 2 today that is kind of an interesting trend in Mac and iOS, and that's different ways to control your devices. So the first one I want to talk about is Controlly, Controlly. I heard an interesting fact on Slack that the developer of Controlly is part of the teen program at Apple. So he's a teenager and he wrote this app, which is pretty amazing. So if you have a game controller, this is an M5 game controller made for iOS, has 2 sticks, and then X, Y, A, and B buttons, as well as a cross pad up here, and a couple of more triggers on the ends. Controlly lets you use any kind of game controller as a mouse for your Mac. And all the different buttons can be mapped to different actions. So for example, the left stick can be used as a mouse to move the cursor around, and the right stick can be used for scrolling. I think that the mousing part of it, the left stick, is a little bit fiddly, especially on small touch targets on the Mac, like apps in the menu bar or links. It's kind of difficult to get the arrow, the pointer, the cursor in the right position, and then you use the A button as a primary click. But any of these things can be changed with the Controlly app that sits in your menu bar on the Mac. What I do like is the scrolling. So scrolling Twitter or Facebook or anything like that is wonderful, just smooth and so much better than a mouse. I really like the scrolling part of it. But in a recent update, he added the ability to map a keyboard command or a keyboard shortcut to any button. And that has opened it up a lot. If you have something like Keyboard Maestro, where you can create keyboard macros. So for example, if I press the Y key on my game controller, I can quit every single app that's running on my Mac and then hide the dock and hide everything on my desktop. And that gets me ready a blank screen for screencasting for doing my videos. And then if I hit another button, it brings everything back and even brings up the dock and brings back all of the hidden apps that are on my desktop. So really handy app, and it's amazing what they can do with bringing in devices you wouldn't think that could be used as a mouse on your Mac, a game controller. Then there's another one I heard of called Keypad. And this lets you use your Mac to control your iPad. So with Keypad, you don't have to buy an external keyboard for your iPad. You can use the one that's built in on your Mac. It connects via Bluetooth. And so once you have Keypad open and you're in the Keypad app, which is just basically a bar that sits on your desktop, then once Keypad's open and you're in it, you can type whatever you want into your iPad. There are also some buttons like going to home or bringing the volume up and down, and copy and paste and things like that that are right within the app too. So things that you can do on the screen on the iPad. For an in-app purchase of $2.99, you can use a mouse on the iPad, the mouse that's connected to your Mac. And just by holding down Control Option, that frees up the mouse on the Mac and brings it over to be able to mouse on the iPad. And then you just hit Control Option again, and it goes back to being able to mouse on the Mac. So you can easily switch between how you want to mouse either on the iPad or on the Mac. Now, I said that I love scrolling on Control-E. Scrolling is very jittery and not very clean or smooth using Keypad on the scrolling on the iPad using a Mac mouse. But everything else seems to work okay, and the mouse seems very responsive moving around on the iPad. But it's kind of the opposite problem. But I think it's really interesting, this trend of different ways to control different iOS or Mac devices. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you, Nathan. Does anybody have any questions for Nathan?
John, I would like to interject real quick here that with that review, Nathan just went over 300 CapMac rewards points first this year.
Wow. Well, congratulations, Nathan. You've been a busy guy.
I do have a question. You're talking about using this on a Mac. Will it also work on a MacBook?
Yeah, so are you talking about Keypad?
Either or both.
Yes. So Keypad lets you use your Mac's mouse and keyboard to control an iPad. Or they say you could do an Apple TV. I haven't tested that yet. But you can use your Mac's mouse and keyboard to control your iPad. Control lets you use a game controller, either a MFI or Xbox, any type of Bluetooth controller to control your Mac. And so I think that it would work on a MacBook. I did notice today in some blogs that there are some certain operating systems that it has trouble with. It said that it worked with Mojave, Big Sur. It really has a problem with High Sierra, and you just have to Google it and look at their webpage and see what it supports and what they can do right now.
So Nathan, you gave your YouTube channel. There was another contact that you had before that. Was that where your blog is, or?
Yes, that's NLAT.me. Stands for Nathan Lots Apple Thoughts.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions for Nathan? All right, well, thanks, Nathan. And I'm glad you've hit your 300 points so quickly. I've seen you post many things, as you've mentioned. You keep updating everyone on Slack about your podcast. So I'm glad to have you do that and glad to have you share it with us tonight. So Robert, that puts you up as next, talking about finding COVID vaccination sites.
Okie dokie. You see how my screen does here.
Good.
Are y'all seeing it?
Yes.
Okay. Let me get up to the top and hit play. All right. I like to listen to Mac Observer Daily, which is a little short podcast that comes on just about every day for about 15-20 minutes with Kelly Gamontz, the host, and hopefully it sounds like she's going to be our presenter next month. So I kind of give them credit for coming up with this, and I thought it was something everybody should know about. If you go into Apple Maps on one of your iOS devices, they've got it built in to see COVID-19 vaccination locations near you, which it looks like just about everybody has already done their vaccines or are in the process. But in case you have friends or anybody, this would hopefully help you. If you go into open up the Apple Maps application on your iOS device, it comes up with a search bar, which if you just leave that blank and just touch it, then what happens is it comes up with sites that are nearby. And the very first one that they give you now is COVID-19 vaccines. And let's see. So in this particular case, when I did this, it came up with quite a few different locations where the vaccines are available. Now you can click on the individual places that you may be interested in. Some of them have tell you that you have to have a appointment or whatever their situation is, at least give you their hours. Having trouble. In this case, I just picked this Walgreens that was here. And if you go further into it, they'll tell you that that you may have to require proof of eligibility and make an appointment, and they give you your hours and stuff. Anyway, I thought this was real helpful because in a lot of cases, it's been hard I know when we started looking for sites to go and register for a vaccine, we had a hard time kind of getting to that. But I wanted to share that functionality is in Apple Maps with everybody in case you had friends or wanted to point that out to somebody. And that's pretty much it.
Can you tell us again how to get to that particular menu?
You go to Apple Maps. Actually, I also meant to mention, I put up a tip page on the resources of CapMac.org that basically goes through all the steps I just did on that little keynote presentation. So if you go to the website, and we'll put a link specifically to that page, it will kind of show you the same thing I just went through on the keynote. But it's basically just go to Apple Maps, go to the search bar, search for the things near you, and it comes up with the default of COVID-19, and you kind of off to the races from there.
That's a really good observation. I never would have thought of looking by using the map.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of it either, but I thought it was kind of cool. I've used it for restaurants and various things, but never had noticed that.
You may have saved some lives tonight.
Does anyone have any other questions for Robert? All right. Well, thank you, Robert, for sharing that. I think it is information that we may not be able to use directly ourselves, but I think we can share it with others and they can use it and it will make a difference. That brings us up to our star program tonight, and that's Nancy talking about the M1 processor. So Nancy, it is all yours now.
Okay.
Okay, I do apologize. I apparently lost my internet connection when I tried to make it play.
So
back talking about the M1 machines, it's a MacBook Mini with the M1 chip. I have that. I don't know if anybody else does. The MacBook Air with the M1 chip, and the MacBook Pro with the M1 chip. Those are the only ones right now that have the M1 chip. And if you'll notice below that in very small print, I've given you the resources that I used to put this together. One was Your M Series Mac by Glenn Fleischman, and how to get the most out of your Mac, out of your M1 Mac, from laptopmag.com. Both of them were very good resources. So let's look at some facts. This is about as technical as it's going to get, by the way, guys. The Apple M1 chip features 4 big Firestone CPU cores for high load scenarios, backed by 4 smaller Ice Storm CPU cores designed for efficiency. So for those of you that means something good. Apple used the M1 chip in the lower end Macs. I have not really ever thought about the any of the MacBooks as low end, but I guess they do. And when it comes to CPU performance, the M1 beats out even the highest end chips used in Apple's notebook lineup. The M1 chip has the fastest single core performance of any Mac And the multi-core performance isn't too far off from any of Apple's desktop machines, the expensive ones. Important fact, the M1 chip cannot run Windows. There's no boot camp, and there's no production release of Windows for M1 Macs. So until some of that changes, you're going to be pretty limited in what you can do with Windows. Greg Federini, who's with Apple, announced in November that Microsoft could opt to license the ARM-based Windows for Mac users, but at this point in time, they have not chosen to do so. There's one simple way to run a limited version of Windows on an M1 Mac. Parallels Desktop for M1 Technical Preview. It's a beta testing release, and you have to be registered as a developer with Microsoft in order to even get it. But if that's an important factor for you, the people who, I know Glenn Fleischman has done that just so because he needed to test it. And he said it's like anything Windows, it takes 3 steps to do what you can do 1 step on a Mac, but it does work.
Nancy,
Mm-hmm.
I heard yesterday that there is an app out that will emulate any one Windows program, and it will use emulation to actually run the Windows program on an M1.
Well, that's good to know. I don't suppose you remember the name of it.
No, it's just announced, and it's still got to go through a bunch more testing.
Oh, okay.
Released by app before Apple.
It costs money.
Oh,
well,
yeah.
Of course. Now,
the regular price of it was like $40, but it was a special for like $20.
Even for the developers, huh? Oh no, different thing. Okay. If you want to learn the steps for this Parallels Desktop technical preview beta testing release, the one-by-one, step-by-step instructions are available in Glenn's book. Okay, more facts. Apple's M1 chip consumes energy so efficiently that it can carry out processor-intensive tasks over a long period of time and consume what seems to be somewhat between 1/3 and 1/2 as much battery power as a comparable Intel laptop, sometimes even less.
Wow.
Intel is suffering big time. I don't know surely they've known that this is coming. And what kind of preparation they may have made, I do not know, nor did, at the time the book was written, did the author. But I think we're going to be seeing more in the news as we go along about this. Okay, what about apps? The M1 powered Macs work best with apps that are optimized for Apple Silicon, which is the M1. It's new. So what about the apps that haven't been updated? The ones that you really don't want to do without or can't do without? They will work, but not as effectively as and it takes a toll on your battery life. So keep that in mind. But there is one thing you can do. Where's my Rosetta Stone? Okay. When you first install an app written for an Intel processor on your M1 Mac for the first time, you will be prompted to set up Rosetta. And if you do that, it's going to make it possible for you to run apps that are not compatible with the M1. And it disturbed me just a bit because I've not been asked to do that. And I know I have apps that are probably not compatible. So it's something I'm going to follow up on after this meeting. Now, if you need to know the status, is applesiliconready.com will give you a list of all of the most used Apple applications and tell you what the status is. This, don't try to copy this down. This website and the one below it that's got about 35 or 40 dozen letters in it. I've already given this to Robert, and Robert's going to send it out to you in an email. That way you'll be able to click on it. So this chart here talks about the application, the developer, if it's optimized or not, if you need Rosetta, or if it works with Rosetta. Now this, I've never heard of Yubico Authenticator, but apparently it's either used by a whole bunch of people or they just jumped in and got it fixed. The graph is much, much, much bigger than what you see here. So you can go there and check because this could be a real important element. There is also an excellent spreadsheet that shows which games have been optimized for the M1, because let's face it, you're going to use up a lot more battery power and everything else when you're playing some of the games that people play nowadays. So this little, I've never seen a URL that long in my entire life. But I copied and pasted it so that it's not, I didn't make any mistakes in it. And you can check out your games that way. Okay. More ways to waste time. With the M1 processor, we can natively run iPhone and iPad apps and games on our Mac. Now, there's some qualifiers. Right now, the options are limited. When I went looking for some examples to show you, I literally couldn't find any. Now, if I had another week, and nothing else to do, I'm sure that I could have. But I'm going to show you what you want to look for if you get ready to do that. So to install an iPad or an iPhone app, search for the app on your OS app store, and then switch to the iPhone and iPad apps tab in the results. I'll show you. Wait a minute, let's see what I got here. Oh, let me tell you this first. Obviously, the touch system that we use on our iPhones and iPads will not work on a Mac screen, no matter how hard we try. So Apple has bundled a set of touch alternatives, which let you execute these gestures with a mouse and a keyboard. Yeah, so you would launch the iOS app or game on your Mac, and then you would click on the app's name. And if it's going to work, there's going to be a drop down, and then you just select touch alternatives. So let me show you. Yeah, I know. So first of all, you're going to go look up the app. Let's say you're going to look up calculator, which probably is one that would transfer. And you look it up on the App Store for the Mac OS, and you're going to see as part of the apps where you've gone, you're on Mac apps, and you'll have the option to just click on the second one that's bound in red that says iPhone and iPad apps, and that's going to take you to all the apps on the iOS that have to do with calendar. Maybe not the exact one, but everything that's there. Now, if you are looking at an app and it says designed for iPhone, not verified for Mac OS, that means it's not going to work right now. And when it says designed for iPhone, it also refers to the iPad. They just didn't want to take up that much room. So you have to kind of, when you get ready to start doing this, you're going to have to spend a little time. And I imagine 6 months from now, this is not going to be a big deal. There'll be all kinds of options, but first things first. So if you look at the second image where it says text art, it says, among other things, that it's designed for the iPhone. So I would just click on the app name, the text art, and it's going to come up with the get over in the right-hand corner, just like any iOS app that you're trying to download. And you would just click on it and it's going to download it to your Mac. Now, if you're doing this with an iPhone, what shows up on your laptop, it is an app that looks like it's on an iPhone screen. Okay, it's going to be tall and slender and work just like it does on your iPhone. But if you're one of those people who works a lot at the computer and sometimes you need a break, you just need a break, and you don't want to have to go find your phone or your iPad, this is going to be a nice feature. The third image here shows you what the first page is going to look like, and you click continue and you're in the app. And if you've already registered or paid for an app in iOS, it should just be a clean transfer. Don't know that for sure because I couldn't find a whole lot of examples. Does anybody have any questions about this? Okay, good. This is what you would get if you clicked on touch alternatives. Since we can't use our fingers, I don't know if any of y'all have ever done this, but I actually went to, I think it was a Walgreens, and put in my credit card, and it said sign your name, and I took my finger and started trying to sign my name because I spent so much time on iOS. But hopefully you won't do that in public. If touch alternatives has been included in the app, you access it by clicking on the name of the app and choosing it from the pull down menu. Because once you click on the little red sign that I had, then it's going to let you do the pull down menu. And so it tells you what you can do. You can, if you tap, to tap, press the space to tap in the center of the window. This is going to work with both the mouse and keyboard and with that little built-in flat, horrible keyboard thing that comes on computers. Y'all know what I'm talking about, where you have to do your finger back and forth. And
iPad.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it comes with those. I despise those things. Not that anybody cares, but I do. So they built, you know, what you can draw from this is they have built in the foundation to make this a long-term opportunity. But it's like any, you know, it's just like some people won't buy the first generation of anything. This is the same thing. They're going to have to work. They're going to have to work on it a bit. Okay, now another important element is backup is not as easy, but it's also not as easy for somebody to hack you. Apple has layered on more protection for system files and software, which means it's much more difficult for any hacker to mess around with Mac OS to grab your data, watch you while you work, or commit other mayhem, which is important. But here's another issue. The M1 makes creating a full backup of your system that you can use to start up your Mac as an external drive and restore exactly what you had, as we've been doing since, you know, it began. It's going to be even harder by having a unique combination of hardware features and requirements. But you do have some options. Because the system volume is immutable, Apple can place only certain of its apps on that volume, ones that don't require regular updates. Because every time the system hardware gets updated, the apps will be updated as well. Example, the App Store, FaceTime, Mail, Photos, Preview, and Siri. But Safari is not in the system volume because it's updated so frequently that it remains secure no matter what. So this whole thing is protecting protecting your Mac and your data. Okay. Backing up is a serious issue, and creating a bootable backup for your hard drive is not easy on the M1 as it is for the Intel based. Joe Kessel is working on a new edition of his book, Take Control of Backing Up Your Mac, that will cover bootable duplicates, data backups, and a host of other backup approaches for both the M series and the Intel Macs. Excuse me. It's going to be available in May. But the everyday backup that we do, like Time Machine, is going to work perfectly fine on the M1 series for backing up the data volume. Apps like Carbon Copy Cloner and a few others to copy the data volume to another volume. But Carbon Copy Cloner can also make an incremental backup, updating only changed files when you run it again, which is exactly what it does now. When it backs up my stuff, the next time it backs up, it only changes what changed. So it doesn't take 14 hours for it to do it. Super Duper, as of March, hasn't caught up to making a simple backup of the data volume. So you're not going to be able to use Super Duper for that now. I would assume with the quality of Super Duper that maybe they're working on this, but just be aware that if that's what you're using for backups, you may want to do some research. Okay. Now, it could have been beginner's luck. I mean, let's face who we're dealing with here. But I migrated from my 2018 MacBook Air with absolutely no problem. And I did it the way you always have migrated. And I just flat out didn't have any problems. My M1, did I do this? Yep. My M1, even in the little box that I have, is so cool. It is so fast. And I have not had a single problem with it. And I'm working on my computer every single night. So if I was having problems, I would be most unhappy. But before you run out and get one, just be aware of all of these considerations, because the M1 chip is totally different from Intel. And what the stuff that's important to you, like backing up, being able to run the apps that you want to without destroying the machine, you need to just be aware of those things and do what's going to work best for you. And the two resources that I gave at the beginning, the Flashman book and the URL that I gave you where I got some of these tips, they're both going to be very helpful, and both of them go into more technical detail than I've felt competent to discuss tonight. But nevertheless, I thought it was really important for us to know this stuff. Now, if some of you may already know all this because you did research, because you do research on everything, and that's great. But for those of us who are not quite as tech oriented, just be aware that this is what you're going to be dealing with, and you're going to be trading some of these issues out for this super fast, fantastic new version of the computer. So are there any questions?
Has your battery lifetime, has that worked out? I mean, from what you've read?
Well, I mean, I keep it plugged in all the time. So, because it's the little box. I mean, it doesn't have a charger on it.
She has a Mac Mini, not a MacBook.
Thank you. I have a Mac Mini.
Oh, okay.
So I can't, I don't particularly worry about the battery, but I would not like it if I was doing something to it that would hurt it, like running programs without installing Rosetta.
With the Rosetta 2, it only gets installed once. So, yeah, I think once that happens, you'll never notice it again.
Yeah. And the fact is, I may have it and from some other time and don't remember it. But it's something that when I was putting this together, I thought I do not remember checking to allow Rosetta to be installed.
As soon as you run an Intel program, it'll ask you to install Rosetta.
It probably did. And, you know, I've slept since then and I don't remember. But that's a real important thing because that, according to everything I read, that's what's going to run your battery down. Now, Glenn Fleischman said in his article, his book, that with the M1 battery, he can run, he has a MacBook Pro. No, wait a minute. He must have a MacBook Air. He's got one of those two. It can go 2 days without being recharged. And that's using it all day long, like you're working somewhere, which is pretty phenomenal.
Jeff, when you're talking about Rosetta, you're talking Rosetta 2, you're not talking about running things like old PowerPC apps or 32-bit apps, are you?
No, that's Intel apps. Your current Intel apps.
Yeah, I think it'll run Intel apps, but they can't be 32-bit. In other words, they have to be more up to date. They have to be 64-bit.
Yeah, well, they couldn't be 32-bit with the last operating system anyhow. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Have you ever had it hang or had programs hang or?
No.
Or, oh, and the other thing, do you have 8 or 16 gig of memory?
16.
Oh, good. Okay.
I got mine to crash twice.
Yeah. Do you know what you did to make it crash?
I was trying to do too much. I had Zoom open. I was trying to record. I had Toastmasters. I was trying to record a speech that I was doing with ScreenFlow, and I had several other apps open, and it just went green and it restarted.
It restarted by itself?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then it happened again. I didn't have as much stuff open, but it's happened twice.
Okay. Well, you obviously do a lot more complicated stuff than I do. I'm on the computer usually about, in addition to anything I do for CapMac, usually about 4 hours a night, and just steady. And it's never quit on me.
Is it pretty zippy?
Nathan, do you have 16 or 8 gig of RAM?
I have 16.
Really?
What did you ask, Peter?
Is it pretty zippy?
Zippy?
Is it fast? Yeah. Is it responsive?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Now, let me qualify this by saying that I have my internet connection. Oh, my internet connection is fiber, which unto itself is fast. So I would think that probably has something to do with it, but it's almost instantaneous.
Or are you connected with Ethernet to your fiber interface?
I have no clue because I didn't have to do that. It's a service of where I live, and
it's the little telephone jack looking thing at the back.
Yeah, that's what I had to go unplug and plug back in when I got kicked off the internet a while ago.
So it sounds like you are.
Yeah, but I didn't set it up. I do have to stand on my head to do that, which is always fun. But at least
that's why God gave you children.
Huh?
That's why God gave you children, or at least that's what you've sold.
That's our grandchildren. It's the case may be. Yeah. Yeah, but see, when you tell an 8-year-old boy to plug one thing into one hole, and there's a whole bunch of other things that you can pull out and plug back in, yeah, you have to stay in control at all times.
This is true.
Are there
Well,
any other questions?
Well, I mean, just a comment that, I mean, as Nathan exhibited, if you're doing a lot of high-end things, using Photoshop that has a lot of layers, things like that, the M1s are probably not for you yet. They just really do not have the memory capacity or the processor power in that regard. Yes, they are extremely energy efficient, but for power things like re-encoding video, that's not necessarily a concern because you know that you're going to be using a lot of power to do the number crunching. And that's where the M1 is lagging behind so far. I think that it will change within a few years, give Apple time. That's why they're going in with the lower end machines first.
Yeah, and the lower end machines will only do so much, just by the nature of them being the lower end machines. I had a MacBook Air before I got the M1, and the MacBook Air would not take the OS update. That was my excuse for.
Oh, how old was your Air?
2018.
And it wouldn't take the.
Nope. I didn't have. I even tried to get my daughter, who works for Apple, to do it, and she couldn't do it either. I don't know if it
my
had.
2015 Air is running Big Sur slowly and crashingly, but it's running it.
Well, it could have been a problem of space. It could have been a problem of memory.
Yeah, maybe so.
Whatever it was, it wouldn't take it.
I'm telling you, it's hanging uppingly and crashingly, but it's still going.
I think Terry Weaver's got one of those machines that she pats it on the top every time she goes by and says, "Oh, thank you for still running."
Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
I have a question about the migration that you did. Were both machines named the same so that
Yes.
it was updating itself?
Yes.
Okay.
That's
a problem I'm having with my MacBook Pro from my MacBook Air, which is an ancient machine.
Yeah, that's a good that's a good point. I truly think that some of the smoothness that I had was probably just beginner's luck because it's fairly easy for me to think I'm doing something right. And
I think I'm gonna. I just acquired one too. It's a mini, but I think I'm gonna start it as new, even though I'm kind of scared to try that.
Well, there are some people here now that know how to.
Well, there's issues on the little Air that I don't want.
Oh, that's a good question. And
because I don't know where the problem is. It might just be that it's too old, but I'm afraid I might have some kind of a issue that is probably caused by the idiot on the other side of it. But
that's called pilot error.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other questions? I do want to speak a little bit about next month's program. It's going to be Kelly Gamont from the Mac Observer. She does podcasts, and she's a very good presenter, and her topic is going to be, I don't have an exact name yet, but she's going to talk about cleaning up your Mac, making it more efficient, making sure you're getting the best use from your battery. And I'm looking forward to hearing her.
Sounds like a good program, Nancy.
Yeah.
Oh, and while I'm still talking, door prizes, 4 people will get a $25 Amazon gift card after this meeting, not tonight. I'm exhausted. Getting old is just, getting old is old. But you will get them emailed to you, and I will send you an email telling you it's coming, so you'll be sure to know to watch it. And they'll be chosen from the, Heidi will send me a list of everybody who's here tonight, and I have an app that will just pick numbers from that list to decide who's going to get them.
I did.
All right. Well, we've heard some good things here tonight. Does anyone have any last minute contributions to make before we wrap it up?
I think Don had, was it Don? You had the question about the migration, or was it?
Well, I've had trouble because I got creative and named my new Pro something different than the old Air. And I think what I'm going to have to do is go back and figure out how to rename everything so that the Air knows that it's going to a bigger version of itself or a better version or whatever. And then add in my time machine data for both of them.
Yeah, I think I had commented that I was having trouble making the migration.
It was Tom that I was thinking of.
Basically, I inherited a 2012 mid-year MacBook Pro from my son-in-law. And for those of you who are aghast at that, that's a new machine for me. So he put Mojave on it and handed it to me. And I took a carbon copy cloner backup of my 2010-ish MacBook Pro on High Sierra and said, okay, here. Well, first I tried copying it direct from the 2010 machine, and it went on for hours and hours and hours and hours, even with a FireWire 800 cable connecting the two computers together. So I then took the drive with the carbon copy cloner on it and said, okay, migration assisted. Migration assistant said, sure, no sweat. And a bunch of hours later, I finally said, oh, enough of this. And discovered that it had migrated the contents of my desktop, but the next layer down from the desktop, like downloads or documents, didn't make it. The applications didn't make it, although I later discovered that the applications had ended up in /private / sandbox. So I'm interested in knowing. So let's see. So that's where I left that one. So then I loaded a copy of Catalina onto a USB drive, and I'm currently stuck on that because when you install it, it installs nice and starts up nice and says, oh, we have a bunch of updates for you. Please allow us to restart your computer. And it never comes back.
Oh.
So I've been having some interesting adventures with trying to get more modern.
Have you got any data on that 2012 machine that you care about?
My life.
Huh?
On the 2012 machine?
Yeah.
No, it is newly abandoned by my son-in-law.
Why don't you try to do a recovery on it to just reinstall the OS? I mean, I think what you maybe need to do, I mean, this is just a thought, is to go ahead and just do a time machine backup of your 2010 machine and on a drive, and then do and have a clean copy of Mojave or whatever you want to put on this 2012 machine. I don't know if I'd put anything higher than High Sierra personally, but on the 2012 and then do the migration assistant from that time machine back up.
Okay, that's a possibility too. The only reason I really care at this point is that TurboTax says they will not let me run next year on
High Sierra.
High Sierra.
Yeah. I mean, Catalina would probably be better, but then that's going to, I don't know what kind of 32-bit apps you may have on the.
A lot. That's the scary. That's, I think,
that's where Mojave would help you, I guess.
That's where Mojave is going to be an end point, because there are a lot of 32-bit apps that don't that either aren't supported or I'm not willing to pay the subscription fees for.
I'm afraid without a clean copy of Mojave to migrate to, you're just going to keep having problems probably.
Well, I keep playing with it, and we'll see what happens. But that was sort of my analysis too. But I thought I would ask in case somebody else has had this experience.
Well, here's the thought. A couple of questions. How much memory does it have?
I think 16.
Okay, 16. That's perfect. That's kind of the maximum. Does it have a hard drive or an SSD?
It has a couple of 1 terabyte SSDs.
So it's totally loaded.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This is he throws out really nice machines.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Well,
the thing that I found interesting that I wasn't expecting is that for the installation of Catalina, the 2 SSDs, one of them says it's the OS and the other one says it's data. And I discovered that seems to be a characteristic of newer OSs that
there's not 2 SSDs, that's just 2 partitions.
Yeah, that's kind
of. This is, in this case, they're separate SSDs. It actually, the installation actually.
I'd be surprised. I don't know how you get 2 SSDs in one of them. There's no place to put it.
Yeah, you replace the disk drive, the optical disk drive.
So you've got you don't even have a Retina 2012. You have an older.
Oh, this is the pre-Retina one.
Pre-Retina.
Well,
the last one that you can take the bottom off of successfully.
Yeah. So do you have a do you absolutely have to run Catalina? I mean, is there some reason other than just wanting to put the last thing you could put on it?
No, I don't have to run Catalina except to do my income tax.
Oh, well, the thing is Mojave. I've been running Mojave on a model that very model for I don't know, as long as it's been out, and it works fine. That's the thing is I just I'd probably go with that or whatever the previous release was. Just as a, just scrape it and put a copy of Mojave or what was the precursor? High Sierra, I guess.
High Sierra comes before
Mojave.
Yeah, exactly. One of those two. They're both competent and they're both good, as long as you have all the patches on them.
Fellas, what if you were to just go ahead and clone the 2010 machine with the High Sierra onto the new machine and then install Mojave?
Bingo.
May I suggest that for the benefit of your fellow CapMac members, when you solve a problem related to M1, write something up and send it to Robert and let him put it on the website so that we don't all have to keep reinventing the wheel.
Well, I agree with that, Nancy, but this isn't an M1 issue.
I'm still back in late Intel.
Yeah. Yeah, but the
But-
2012s, those 2012 machines, I've got a mini that's a 2012 and my laptop's the same thing. And they really haven't made any significant improvement in the Intel platform since then. I mean, these things, as long as they have an SSD and lots of memory, they go like banshees. And they've got USB 3 and the video's good. You can't beat it. I mean, they just, it's telling really. I mean, the M1's a big step ahead of what Intel was doing even recently. So.
Well, if you do get it solved though, Tom, what Nancy suggested is a good
Right
idea.
enough.
Share with us how you solve the problem.
Okay, but that requires that I describe the problem well enough that somebody can figure out what's going on.
Well, if they have a question, Tom, they can ask.
Yeah.
I mean, you're doing.
If I find a path through this maze, I will write it down and share it somewhere.
Thank you, Tom.
And one more thing sorry, John, one more thing I forgot is that the M1s cannot be worked on by us. Okay.
No consumer installable parts, no CIP.
Everything's soldered in place.
Thank you, Craig.
I have a
That
quick
sounds so much
comment.
better.
So if you want higher memory, you
Order
have
it
to
now.
do it. You can't get an upgrade from OWC later to triple it up or whatever.
Right.
It has to be
Now.
built in.
Oh, we are at that time. Is there any last minute comments or do we call it a wrap? Well, it sounds like we're all good to go for a month. So thank you all for attending tonight. And Robert will be getting the recording out if you want to go back and see what it was that we were talking about and check some of the points or share it with friends that you know. That should be out sometime this week. Other than that, we'll be in touch and see you all next month.
Good night.
Good night.